to talk for a minute about John Oliver. When his new program launched earlier this year, he said that the show would deliver headlines with some commentary and some laughs. But he was adamant last week with John Oliver would not be journalism. The show's been on for a few months, and the more we're seeing of it, the more we're seeing examples of what we would call Big J journalism emerging. Take, for example, the reporting that had to have gone into this excerpt, an investigation into scholarships given through the Miss America pageant system.
But it was then, while digging around on their site, that we discovered that Miss America and its foundation are registered non-profits, which mean they have to file public tax forms. So what we were looking for was that crazy number, $45 million. What we found instead was that in 2012, at the national level, they spent less than $500,000 in cash scholarships, leaving us a mere $44.5 million short of what they say they provide. And at this point, we really had a clear choice. We could have just thought, sure, the numbers don't really add up, but it's only Miss America who really gives a shit. Or we could try to pull the tax forms from every state-level competition in the country, because this was starting to drive us f***ing insane. It's been a weird week here.
You may have heard that thump. That was Oliver plopping a pile of documents 8 inches tall onto the table. And this Sunday, Columbia's own police chief, Ken Burton, showed up in a segment on civil asset forfeiture.
And at this point, you may be thinking, well, sure, the police departments are getting a lot of money from seizing stuff, but I'm sure there are limitations on how they can spend it. Well, allow me to take you to a 2012 Columbia, Missouri Citizen Police Review Board hearing.
How do you decide forfeiture funds?
You know, it's usually based on a need. Well, I'll take that back.
Discretion, though, I'd imagine you sign off on?
Yeah, there's some limitations on it. You know, it's... Actually, there's not really on the forfeiture stuff.
Actually, there's basically no limitations at all, come to think of it. We're essentially gods. We're gods. We're like the anti-Spider-Man, great power, no responsibility. I can't believe this hasn't come up before. And look, his honesty was not over.
We just usually base it on something that would be nice to have, that we can't get in the budget, for instance. So, you know, we try not to use it for things that we need to depend on, you know, because we need to go ahead and have those purchased. But it's kind of like pennies from heaven, you know, it gets you a toy or something that you need, is the way we typically look at it.
That's right, that's right. They buy toys with pennies from heaven.
So I'm guessing that's video that the Columbia Police Department, the Police Review Board, the City Council, probably not happy about having show up on national television, but it's out there. That was originally on public access television. I know I sit home and watch City Council meetings every other Monday night. I'm not sure what that says about me, but I invite folks to go to our Links blog and watch both of those segments. They're each about 15 minutes long, and see the reporting that's going into them. My opinion, it's journalism there.
I don't think there's any question it's journalism. They're digging into records.
John Oliver doesn't want to think it's journalism.
Right. Well, you know, but it doesn't serve him to say that this is journalism. It serves him to say that this is entertainment. But this is the great juxtaposition. You know, we've been talking about the 24/7 news cycle. This is the kind of program that we ought to be seeing on news channels. It's entertaining. It's engaging. It's comedy, maybe only in the respect that you can't believe that it's real life, and it really is sort of answering some questions like, how does this stuff work?
Mm-hmm. I think the difference is I certainly don't have the delivery that he has, and so I don't think I could pull it off as an investigative journalist. But I don't think this was exactly the way I went about things, and so I think his delivery is one thing. I also think that Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart, all these, I mean, they have a lot of news value in them. He did something that no other journalist, at least that I've seen, has looked exactly into these issues the way that he did. However, he also doesn't have an obligation to be balanced.
Right.
let's say, he can be flabbergasted by something. That's not something that I would advocate for being on a television station that I work for in local television network affiliate.
Certainly it doesn't meet some of the standards of journalism. This is the one thing that I would say on the flip side of that about the Columbia Police Chief. Please understand that it doesn't matter if you're on local access. If you're a public official, I think you ought to start operating under the premise.
Everything is being recorded.
Everything is being recorded. Everywhere that you go, there is no such thing as a private comment anymore. And please begin to operate on that premise, because otherwise you're going to end up on national television.